Something you should know about me also, and I like that you get to select your own term there, irrepressible, but I bump fists. I, instead of shaking hands, bump fists. People ask me why. I teach 300 students. Walking into a classroom with 300 students is like wading into a sea of swine flu contagion at the University of Georgia. They come up after class, their hand extended, smiling, wanting to shake my hand. I bump fists. They think I'm trying to be cool. I'm just trying not to catch cold. But that's important to know about me. When you teach that many students, it's important to stay careful as much as possible. That's why I got excited when I went on Facebook, and I do it really often, and I found that 31 of my friends had downloaded this app, Keep Me Well. Told me that it was going to find a way to help me stay healthy, which is important when you've got to do those weekly lectures. I went online. It requested permission. We all know the drill. It asked me what I was willing to share via Facebook. It's a Facebook app. I did allow. How many of you guys have done that before? Oh, be honest. We've all done it a lot more than we admit to, which was exciting. Now, it happened. Even though I was as careful as possible, I got that kind of burning behind your eyes. I got that sore throat. I started to feel achy and scratchy, and it just became clear that one of those bright students had infected me. And if I find out who, they're going to be repeating the class. But I went and I said, it's time for me to go home. I sent a Facebook update to my wife. Said, I'm going home. I think I'm getting the flu. I'm not going to get everybody in the office sick. And I noticed something that happened. Down there in that little bitty app that's running in the corner of my Facebook, I noticed that my health moved from green, which I'm always proud of, to yellow. Oh well. And then before I left to go home, I went to WebMD. I have a hard time figuring out exactly what kind of cough medicine I want to do, so I requested some information about the swine flu symptoms. And as soon as I did, I noticed that little icon in the bottom now moved me over into, like, it's dangerous in this part of the world to say that I was getting orange, but it was moving me more towards the colors that I do like, not though when it comes to health monitoring, but it said something different about me. Now, and then finally I went to CVS, and I knew that I had to get one of those non-prescription medicine, but how many of you guys have used the barcode reader? The barcode reader scanner that you can use to help you find products, to get product information. And hey, I don't know what's going on in Florida, but at the University of Georgia, we're under some slight budget constraints, so I'm trying to save money wherever possible. I was going to find out where I could get that cough medicine cheaper. So I did the scan, which not only put information about what I was thinking about purchasing, but it also put in my location. And all of a sudden, I moved all the way to red. Now, I went home. I booted up Facebook, because that's what I do when I go home, and all of a sudden I get a text message from one of my colleagues that tells me, Keep Me Well has just upped my risk for flu to high. I'm not coming into work. I'm getting married next week, remember? Now, that's a story I wanted to tell you guys, because it's all about Facebook for us. We're really looking at the new ways that people are sharing information. That's a story. That's hypothetical. But by the time I get done, I really want you to understand that the possibilities for this type of messaging system, this type of new use of social media is right there. It's happening now. It's happening in the commercial field. It's not happening as much when we talk about health. And if I get anything out of talking to you guys, I hope that you'll start to think about some of the more innovative ways that we can start to use all of this data that we're contributing now. Because we start to see now, Facebook is becoming for us what we call a permeable data source, right? A permeable data source. What I mean by that is data's going in, and sometimes data goes out. You know, we used to talk about data lockers, and there's still an awful lot of personal data lockers companies that are out there. And you guys can think of them, Personal, Connect Me. These are all places where you can contribute information about yourself into a stored area. Then you as a consumer can decide how it is that you release that information. And there are people who are even coming up with ways of selling your own information via these data lockers to make it happen. But you know what? These data lockers just don't work. Because on the back end, when we want to go to release it, we've got to find a way of contributing the information to these data lockers. When I first did the data locker that I was experimenting with, it presented me with a questionnaire that contained over 85 questions about my behavior. How many of you guys would take the time to fill out the 85 questions not knowing what the potential payoff is going to be? So personal data lockers have evolved, and we're really starting to see them being used more and more. The substitute for this is becoming Facebook. How many of you guys have seen this logo before? If you haven't seen it before, you will see it in the next 2 to 3 years. This will be the most important development that Facebook, and it's already doing now, is using. This is the open graph. Now, what I mean by open graph is, in April of 2010, there were a lot of people who were getting upset with how much Facebook was collecting information about them. We've all watched, and we know now that there are 847 million users of Facebook. The scale is incredible. And on a daily basis, people who are using Facebook are contributing information about themselves. Their likes, their posts, their pictures, all of those things. Facebook noticed that there were people who were having trouble with it, so they came up with the open graph. What the open graph will allow you to do is to create an app, and this app, an application, a small piece of software, if it runs within Facebook, and if the users give you permission, you can access as much of that information as people are willing to give to you. Right? This is a place where you can, via Facebook, call upon all of that personal data storage to create apps for it. Now, when we talk about Facebook, what's important about the open graph is it used to be that we talked about search. We used to talk about the ways that things were organized. Now what Facebook has done with the open graph is it's creating a network of things, of nodes, of things you like, of things you buy, of person you communicate with, of places that you go. It's creating a data source where all of this data is going to be stored. And now that's why I want to take you to the example that I was talking about there. How is it that Keep Me Well could work? And I want you guys to be thinking, how is it that something like Keep Me Well could work for my organization? You know, what we really found is that over 250 million people, and I'm going to tell you what, that number I think is low based on the recent IPO, but 250 million people log into Facebook every day, right? Now what's surprising is more than 20 million apps are being downloaded every day. Just like the Keep Me Well, people are clicking on that allow to create these apps that will run in Facebook for you. Now, what's also surprising is that one of the biggest things that people post about, well, it's not the most, but one of the things they post about is their health condition. Swine flu was the third most common status update in 2009. So people are contributing not just this information about things they like, but things that are happening in their life, and their health conditions are a big part of what they're willing to share. Now, what we also know is that on average, 17,000 people run searches on WebMD every month. Now, what's going to feel different about this is we know that WebMD isn't Facebook, right? But what we're going to find out, and I'm going to tell you about, is now what Facebook is doing is creating a way to connect up the searches that people would run in WebMD to Facebook. And then also what we know is that in 2010, mobile bar scanning code apps grew 1,600%. Yeah, it's correlated with the economy, that people are trying to find ways of saving money, but people are doing that. So what we're really finding is that now people are continually contributing this information to Facebook, and Facebook is sitting there as the permeable data source for it. There have been some things that are happening with Facebook that are going to make it even more important for you as health communicators, you health people, and me for being the geek that I am. How many of you guys have heard of frictionless sharing? This is a brand new procedure that Facebook has put out just in the last month or so. Frictionless sharing, the way that Facebook describes it, it's going to alleviate you from having to approve connections. You're not going to have to continue to do the connect part of it. There are certain partners that Facebook is going to work with which will make it automatic when you visit that site that it will then begin to put the information that you do on that site into Facebook. So if you go to WebMD, and WebMD is not one of the partners at this point, and it's only a hypothetical example, but if I were to go to WebMD and type in the search results that I would put into WebMD via fictionless sharing would go into my Facebook Open Graph. That's going to be very important because now Facebook is turning itself into that central repository. Another thing that you're going to notice too is gestures. How many of you guys have wondered about that like, when you go to click like? You know, and I can remember the one thing that I found really amazing about it is I heard a great story that I was reading in a newspaper. It was really well written about a crime that was committed in Athens. And I can remember thinking, wow, that was a really well done article. They did a great job of summarizing the facts and helping me understand it. So I clicked like. And I can remember my friend writing back and go, you like crime in Athens? Well, what does that mean? What Facebook has done now is expanded those categories to not just be likes anymore. They can be desire. They can be want. They can be used. They can be product. They can be a range of different things. The one thing that it's not going to be is they're not going to make dislike one of them. But these are going to be the ways that we're going to be putting it. And so think about you as having your site will have an opportunity to ask people what they're buying and then have it inserted into your Facebook Open Graph. And then the final one that's going to be the most important, the Facebook IPO. Yeah, we're all excited about that one, aren't we? This is going to be huge. Some people are talking upwards of $75 to $100 billion IPO projected. Now what's going to be very important about that is Facebook is going to have to continue to come up with ways to make their advertising model work. That's why we're seeing Open Graph now, because they've got to find a way to continue to grow, to bring in more material into it. So those are going to be very important. And here's the thing I want to tell you about with Open Graph that I think is going to be very important. You know, we've got to start to think about the ownership of this data. Who owns the information that you put into Facebook? You know this. Who? Facebook. You clicked on it. When you said, yes, I agree, what you said is everything I put into Facebook belongs to Facebook. And Facebook can do anything that they want to do with it. I had a friend who was browsing the internet not too long ago, and he saw that omnipresent ad that says, looking for singles in your area. And when he looked over at that ad, he saw a picture of his wife. And he went and asked his wife about it and said, you know, what's going on? And when he was telling me the story, he said, she denied it. And I go, duh, you know, of course. But they even used those pictures in advertising for it. So we're going to, you know, they own it, but it's going to be very important as we move towards a bigger corporation that Facebook is clearly going to be. Who truly owns this material? Also, how do you control it? Facebook has set up some rudimentary controls that you can use to click when you allow different pieces of it. That's going to evolve more. We're going to see a lot more finer grade controls over it with Facebook Open Graph, but it's something that's going to be very important for us. And of course, we all worry about the security. Now, when you work in the healthcare field, I know that that material about people is very important. And I'm only going to give you heresy to think about. I love heresy. You know, it's something that I can say to you because you don't work for me, I don't work for you. But I'm going to tell you what, the best thing about what we're seeing with Open Graph is Facebook is agreeing to take on this requirement for security. Do they do a good job? No. You know, but what you're really going to see is that people will see more. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you. Keep Me Well is an example of the type of app that I think is going to be very important for us going forward. That we're really going to see more apps that will call upon the Open Graph, that will start to use it. And I'm going to tell you, how many of you guys feel creeped out by some of the things that I'm talking about there, right? You know, that's a term that I had never really heard until I started working with undergrads. When you say, it creeps me out to get too close to this. You know what? I agree. It's something that we need to think about. But advertising is the grease that will drive these engines. I think if we're going to be truly innovative about how we reach people in new ways and to help people make better health behavior decisions, it's going to be very important that we learn the lessons of what commercial industry is doing for us. So that's me. I'm Scott Shamp. You can clap now, and then I'll be happy to answer questions.